chapter 23. And in the 7th year Jehoiada strengthened himself and took captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jeroham, and Ishmael the son of Jehonan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zichri, into covenant with him. And they went about in Judah, and gathered the Levites out of the cities of Judah, and the heads of the fathers' houses of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord hath spoken concerning the sons of David. This is the thing that you shall do. A third part of you that come in on the Sabbath, of the priests and of the Levites, shall be porters of the doors. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation, and all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. But let none come into the house of the Lord, save the priest, they that minister of the Levites, they shall come in, for they are holy, but all the people shall keep the charge of the Lord. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. Whosoever cometh into the house, let him be slain, and be you with the king when he comes in, and when he goes out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And they took every man his men, those that were to come in on the Sabbath, those that were to go out on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. And Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds the spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he set all the people, every man with his weapon in his hand, from right side of the house to the left side of the house, along the altar and the house, by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, the insignia, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and they said, Long live the king. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of the Lord. And she looked, and behold, the king stood on his platform at the entrance, and the captains and the trumpets by the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and blew with trumpets. The singers also played on instruments of music, and led the singing of praise. Then Athaliah rent her clothes, and said, Treason, treason. And Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, Have her forth between the ranks, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of the Lord. So they made way for her, and she went to the entry of the horse gate to the king's house, and they slew her there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and all the people, and the king, that they should be the Lord's people. And all the people went to the house of Baal, and broke it down, and broke his altars and his images in pieces, and slew Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of the Lord under the hand of the priest of the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord, to offer the burnt offerings of the Lord, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, according to the direction of David. And he set porters at the gates of the house of the Lord, that none that was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of the Lord. And they came through the upper gate into the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, and they slew Athaliah with the sword. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And we remember yesterday they had made Achaziah. Achaziah had become the king, and Achaziah would only rule for 1 year there in Jerusalem, because he would do wickedly and God would punish him. We'll find out it was his counselors. His counselors had led him astray, his mother, and who was the daughter of Achab, and all the house of Achab. And he had went astray, after them. And Jehu, which is God himself, had come and was punishing the house of Achab, as we would learn in Kings, in the book of Kings. And he punished Acacia as well. Acacia was those that were seized of God, those that was God's taken hold of. God's punishing because just like a little kid and that is doing mischief there on the playground, God is punishing. He is taking hold of even the kingdom. But now Athaliah, when she finds out that was the mother of Acacia, Athaliah are those that are oppressed of God. She finds out that they've slain Acacia. She slays the rest of all the royal seed, or all the sons of David, and except for one, and we'll find out. They have hid him away, and his name is Joash, and these are those that God has consumed. We'll find out. God is saving now, according to the covenant he made with David. He has preserved Joash. We're going to pick it up here in verse 1. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jeroham, and Ishmael the son of Jehochanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zichri, into the covenant with him. And it would be the 7th year, we would remember now at the end of last chapter. 6 years did they hide him there in the house of God in Jerusalem. And that was Joash who they were hiding there. Now it would be the 7th year, so even them hiding Joash, that Jehoiada, he was the priest. He was married to Jehoshabeat, the sister of Joash. She was the king's daughter. Jehoiada, God knows, God understands, he strengthens himself, and he took the captains of hundreds, those are of judgments, Azariah, who was the son of Jeroham, and Azariah is those that are supported, those that are helped, those are supported of God. He was the son of, or the one that comes forth from Jeroham. Jeroham is those showing of deep love, having great love or compassion for, or regards for. Ishmael is those that are heard of the Mighty One, these that even hear the Mighty One. He's the son of Jehochanan. Jehochanan is the mercy of God, God's mercy, God's pity. And Azariah, the son of Obed. Azariah, once again, is those are supported of God. Those that are supported of God, those that come forth from the servant, that is the one who God supports. And Maaseiah, the son of Adaiah. And Maaseiah is this work of God. It's all the work of God. It's the great work of God. He is the one that comes forth from Adaiah. That's passed on by God. This that is set in motion by God. It's given for eternity. It's a perpetual thing to show He's God, and this is His work. Elishaphat, this is the mighty one of judgment, and even this mighty one of judgment that He set over this son, or the one who come forth from Zichri, and that's those that are remembered, or the remembered. Verse 2, and they went about in Judah, and gathered the Levites out of the cities of Judah, and the heads of the fathers' houses of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. And they went all through Judah, that place of praisings. They gathered the Levites, those that will join out of all the cities, those places that have a guard, bad protection of praisings, in the cities of praisings, and the heads, or these ones that were the authority figures of their fathers' houses, of all the tribes of Israel, even those that contend with the Mighty One, and they came to Jerusalem. That's that place of peaceful teachings, or even the teachings of peace. 3, and all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God, and he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign as the Lord has spoken concerning the sons of David. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And there, and we'll find out, they're going to reestablish because Athaliah is taken over, and she's doing wickedly. She is the daughter of Achab, and she is, well, fine. They've set altars and all throughout the Judah, and they've made these high places, and they set these images up. And all the congregation will find of these Levites. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign as the Lord has spoken concerning the sons of David. And the king's son, as God had spoken to David concerning the covenant that he made with David. And we'll find out, just like the covenant that he made David, as long as you keep the law, your sons will reign. And God's given them this chance after chance, see, to keep the law. When they do keep the law, we'll find God prospers greatly, and when they don't, God punishes. And this is at that end of that period of punishment. It took many generations to get to the top, and then it just takes one to get back to the bottom. 4. This is the thing that you shall do. A third part of you that come in on the Sabbath of the priest and of the Levites shall be porters of the doors. This is what you shall do. This third part of you. This third, now it's a portion. It's going to be divided into 3. One portion is a third, and this is to complete, even a portion that does complete, of those that come in on the Sabbath. That's the day of rest. It's a day of rest. These of the priest and of the Levites, and we'll find out Jehoiada is making a separation in the orders, or these periods even, shall be porters of the doors. And these porters of the doors are the keepers. Those that keep the doors are these places where they enter into the house. 5. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. And a third part shall be at the king's house. And a third part is also a portion of completion shall be at the king's house, or there where the king dwells. And a third part at the gate of the foundation. And a third part is also a portion of that completes, all 3 making the total 1. At the gate, and that's that place of judgment, of the foundation where these things were established. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house, or in the outer portions of the house, because the inner portions are the outer court is that which is added on. It's that goes out. It ain't part of the original foundation. 6. And let none come into the house of the Lord, save the priest, that minister unto the Levites. They shall come in, for they are holy, but all the people shall keep the charge of the Lord. But there's nobody going to be allowed to enter into the house of God, the house of the Lord, except for the priest, and they that minister of the Levites. Those that minister of the Levites at that time could enter in. But all the people shall have to stay in the outer courts and keep the charge of God, because they was not allowed to enter in. They was not clean. 7. That's a whole other story. 7. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. Whosoever cometh into the house, let him be slain. And be you with the king when he comes in and when he goes out. And he's appointing the guards, these Levites, these ones that join, to surround the king all the way around him and watch over him, every man with his weapons in his hand and with his works, in his works. And whosoever cometh into the house or doesn't abide by that law, see that they can't enter in because they're not clean. He should be slain and they're going to watch over the king when he comes in and when he goes out. 8. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And they took every man his men, those that were to come in and on the Sabbath, and with those that were to go out on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. And the multitude of them that would come in and change their courses, this would give them twice as many. There would be twice as many people present, because he did it on the Sabbath, wherein the courses would change, and this would be the period of the month when the priest would change their courses, and a new group would come in to take over. The others would go out, but Jehoiada, God knows, this understanding of God, dismissed not these courses, so that there would be twice as many people there. 9. And Jehoiada the priest delivered the captains of hundreds, the spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And Jehoiada, God's understanding, he's the priest, delivered to the captains of hundreds, these rulers of judgments, these spears and bucklers and shields. And these spears and bucklers and shields are those that can be cast for. These bucklers are these pointed things. They are those things that had the barbs, that way they stick. And these shields, those things of the covenants, I call them the covenants. They are these shields of protection. It all is the law that had been King David's, and they had belonged to King David. David was that loved one, is that chosen one, I call him, which were in the house of God. These things even that David made, and he put there for this use. 10. And he set all the people, every man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, along by the altar, and the house, by the king round about. And he sets all the people, every man with his weapon, all these rulers, these ones he set over the judgments, over hundreds, from the right side, and that's from the side of strength, those things of strength being made plain here, and to the left side of the house, and that's those things we can witness being made plain here, along by the altar, that place where they slay, at the house, and by the king round about. And we'll find out that once again that God has salvaged, God is going to reestablish the king back over the kingdom which he gives, which God controls. Then they brought out the king's son and put upon him the crown and the insignia, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and they said, "Long live the king." Then they brought out the king's son, and this is the one who would come forth even from the king, and they put upon him the crown, and that's that which goes around the head. It represents that, just keeps going. It's that golden circle of understanding. It's the insignia, even that which we know. It makes him known that he is the king. And Jehoiada and his sons anoint him, and this is the understanding of God that's anointed him. And they said, "Long live the king." 12. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of the Lord. Now when Athaliah, these are those that were oppressed of God, hears this noise, and the people are all outside running, because it's a great noise. It's a great day, the anointing of the new king, and this praising, this commotion that's going on in the house of God. She comes to the people there. 13. And she looked, and behold, the king stood on his platform at the entrance, and the captains with the trumpets by the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced and blew with trumpets, and singers also played on instruments of music, and led the singing of praise. Then Athaliah rent her clothes, and said, "Treason, treason!" And there when she gets there, she looks, and behold, the king standing on his platform, that place where they would anoint him so everybody could see. And all the captains of these hundreds, all these captains, these rulers of judgment, standing around with the trumpets by the king, blowing their warnings, sounding these trumpets, these shofars. All the people of the land rejoicing, and they were blowing their trumpets, these warnings. These singers also that are on the instruments of music, and they led the singing of praise. These instruments of music, we'll find out that they were given to play by David. David, to call to remembrance these things of God. 14. And Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, "Have her forth between the ranks, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword." For the priest said, "Slay her not in the house of the Lord." And they knew this was going to happen. And Jehoiada, this understanding of God, he's the priest, brought out the captains of hundreds, these rulers even of judgments that he had already placed there, that were set over the host. They was over everybody. And he said unto them, take her out of here. Take her out between the ranks, between columns, and take her out from before here. And they followed her. And whosoever follows her, let him be slain with the sword. And because they had done determined they was not going to slay her in the house of God. 15. So they made way for her, and she went out to the entry of the horse gate to the king's house, and they slew her there. So they opened up a hoe, that's what I call it, they made a way, they parted ways, and brought her forth from the house to the entry, that place where you go in, the horse gate, and that's that gate of judgment. That's a place of judgment there. That's where they gather for judgment. That's what the gate represents. And the horse gate is where they would bring in the horses, or these things of strength, to the king's house. And there they would slay her. And Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and all the people and the king, that they should be the Lord's people. And Jehoiada, this was, God knows, God's understanding, even God has understanding. He made a covenant between himself and all the people, and the covenant that he would make, this agreement even, and the king, that they should be the Lord's people. They should be God's people, and we'll find, keep the law of God, keep God's understanding, keep knowledge, keep the wisdom that he gave you from the beginning, even the law. 17. And all the people went to the house of Baal, and broke it down, and broke his altars and his images in pieces, and slew Mattan the priest of Baal before the altars. Then all the people go from the house of God over to this abode of Baal, this house of Baal, and they break it down. Baal was that Lord image. He was a Lord. That's what Baal means, in this image, even that they had made of a Lord over themselves. And they broke his altars, and that's altars plural, and his images plural, in pieces, because the places of Baal were many, and these altars that they had made, these alternative places of slaying, God said, you shall not do that. And these images, these things that they had made, that they bowed down to and worship, these understandings of men even. And there they would slay Mattan. And Mattan is the gifted. He is the gifted. This one even that was gifted. He was the priest of Baal. That's one who would stand for Baal. That Lord image. He was before the altars. That's where they would slay him, before the altars. These places where they slay. 18. And Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of the Lord under the hand of the priests, the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord, to offer the burnt offerings of the Lord, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, according to the direction of David. And Jehoiada, God's understanding, God's knowledge, appoints to the office of the house of the Lord, under the hand of the priests, the Levites, under their works, just like David said, just like it was commanded according to the law of Moses, to offer these burnt offerings, and those things that make atonement, those that have to pass through the fire, even those that will make atonement, and that's those that have fell under that judgment, even that generation that had turned from God, that had went astray after Baal, even. They would return with rejoicing and singing, even those things that call to remembrance, according to the direction of David. Even he was the loved one, he was the beloved, which God had chosen. I call him the chosen one, for this example. 19. And he set the porters at the gates of the house of the Lord, that none that was unclean in anything should enter in. And these porters, they're keepers. They're people that keep the gates, these places of judgment of the house of the Lord. You can't go in and out. They don't just let anybody in and out, see. That none that was unclean in any should enter in. If anybody's unclean, can't come in and are out there. You're not allowed to go in or out. The porters do keep the gates, and that's those places of judgment. 20. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of the Lord. And they came through the upper gate unto the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And he took all these captains of hundreds, all these ones of judgments, these rulers of the judgments, and all the nobles, all those ones of nobility, and the governors of the people, all these ones that was the overseers of the people, these appointed over the people, all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of God, and they came through the upper gate unto the king's house. And that would be the upper gate that enters into the king's house, even. That upper gate, that place that's above the judgments unto the king's house. And they set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And they set him back there upon the throne of the kingdom. And that's the throne, that place of rule over the king's dominion. Because we'll find out, see, God sets that place. It's God's kingdom. God's the king, and he loaned it now because he gives it to the king to rule over, and he establishes the kingdom. He establishes the king. He punishes when they sin. He'll bless when they're good. 21. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet. And they slew Athaliah with the sword. And they would slay Athaliah with the sword, even these that are oppressed, the oppressed of God, or even this one who would oppress, will find through their Baalim, through the ways of her father, these Baalim with these Lord images that they had set up. We're going to continue. Chapter 24. Turn and return.